Here is a contradiction that quietly wrecks more retirements than any market crash. For 40 years, the entire financial industry has one message for you: accumulate. Buy the bigger house, buy the second car, buy the boat, the RV, the classic car in the garage, save more, own more, build more, and then one day you cross the finish line into retirement, and every single thing you were told to acquire becomes something you now have to feed. The house needs a roof. The cars need insurance. The toys need storage. The whole pile you spent a career building is now billing you every month for the privilege of keeping it. Most retirement advice obsesses over what to buy and how much to save. Almost none of it talks about the other half of the equation, which is what to let go of and when. After watching thousands of Americans walk through this door, one pattern is impossible to ignore. The retirees who thrive are not the ones with the most stuff. They are the ones who learn the difference between what they own and what owns them. So, today we are going to talk about 5 things worth selling, or simply letting go of, before and during retirement. We will start with the one that moves the most money, and we will end with the one you cannot sell on eBay at any price. Problem 1. The oversized house. Consider the arithmetic of the empty nest. That 4-bedroom house was the exact right size when it held a family of 5. It was full of noise and homework and the entire architecture of raising children. But the children are gone now. They have their own leases, their own mortgages, their own noise. And you are left heating, cooling, cleaning, taxing, and repairing 3 empty bedrooms that exist mainly as a museum of who you used to be. The typical American who bought decades ago is sitting on enormous equity, often $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, frozen inside walls they no longer need. That is not wealth working for you. That is wealth sitting under a roof you are paying to maintain. Now, downsizing does not mean exile. One couple loved their neighborhood, the walkable downtown, the park across the street. What they did not love anymore were the winters, so they sold the oversized house and used the equity to buy a smaller condo in the exact same neighborhood for the warm months, then spent the cold months somewhere kinder. They freed up $200,000 in equity, and they cut $15,000 a year in maintenance and utilities. But the real change was subtler than the numbers. They stopped being house managers and started being life managers. The house had been quietly running them. They took the job back. Problem 2. Subsidizing your adult children at the cost of your own security. This is the uncomfortable one because it collides directly with parental instinct. But look honestly at the math of time. If you are 60, you have, statistically, somewhere under 1,000 weeks of healthy, active life left. 1,000. Your adult children have decades to earn, to recover from mistakes, to build their own security from the ground up. There are loans for houses. There are loans for cars. There are loans for education. There is no loan anywhere on earth for retirement. One couple delayed their own retirement by 3 full years to help a daughter buy a house. It came from love, and there is nothing wrong with the impulse. But that daughter could have qualified for a conventional mortgage, built her own equity, and learned the machinery of financial responsibility along the way. The parents traded 3 of their prime, healthy retirement years for a down payment. The daughter kept the house. The parents can never buy those years back at any price. If you have the surplus to help your kids and it genuinely helps them, wonderful, do it. But do not liquidate your own limited, irreplaceable time to solve a problem your children are fully capable of solving themselves. Problem 3. The expensive toys that quietly became expensive burdens. The boat, the RV, the collection of classic cars. Take Tom, a man who spent 20 years restoring classic cars, late nights in the garage, bringing dead machines back to life with his own hands. He ended up with 5 beautiful vehicles, each one a genuine labor of love. Nobody is questioning the joy. The problem was the receipt. Those 5 cars cost him roughly $8,000 a year in storage and insurance, and well over $12,000 a year once you added maintenance and registration. And he drove them maybe 6 times a year. Run that number. $12,000 divided across 6 drives is $2,000 every single time you backed a car out of storage. His wife did the math out loud, and his first reaction was the one you would expect. Absolutely not. These are not cars, they are my life's work. And that was true. But over the following year, Tom noticed he was visiting the storage unit less and less. The cars sat there, immaculate and unused, quietly draining $12,000 a year from his retirement. He finally admitted he was keeping them for who he used to be, not who he actually was now. So he kept his favorite, the first one he ever restored, the one he genuinely loved to drive. And he sold the other 4 to collectors who would actually use them. He cut $9,000 a year in expenses, freed up $180,000 in capital, and crucially, kept the joy and dropped the burden. The lesson is not to sell everything you love. It is that keeping everything can quietly prevent you from enjoying anything. Problem 4, the redundant car. This one also lives in the garage. When you were both commuting, 2 cars was simple math. But in retirement, nobody is commuting. So ask the honest question. Do 2 vehicles really need to sit there depreciating, insured, registered, and maintained so that each of you can drive separately to the grocery store twice a week? One couple ran the experiment before making it permanent. They calculated the true annual cost of the second car, insurance, maintenance, registration, and it landed around $3,000 a year. Then, instead of arguing about it, they simply pretended for 2 months that they only had one. Short version, it was far easier than they feared. They sold the second car and redirected that $3,000 a year toward travel, which is to say, toward actually living, instead of toward a machine sitting idle in the driveway. Problem 5. The one thing on this list you cannot sell, list, or ship anywhere, and often the hardest to release. Your work identity. Your need for professional validation. Consider the surgeon who practiced for 30 years, retired in perfect financial shape, and 6 months later admitted the quiet truth. I used to be Dr. Miller. Now I am just Michael. He was financially ready and emotionally adrift because for 3 decades his name had a title welded to the front of it, and retirement had quietly unbolted it. He started volunteering at a clinic, not really for the patients, but to feel like Dr. Miller again. He was clinging to an old identity instead of discovering a new one. The turn came when he stopped trying to resurrect Dr. Miller and started asking who just Michael might become. He rediscovered woodworking. He mentored younger doctors. He became, of all things, Grandpa Michael, and he stepped into that role in a way he never could during the years he worked 50 and 60-hour weeks. Here's the truth underneath all of it. Your job title was never who you were. It was only what you did. The retirees who flourish do not try to rebuild their careers in miniature. They use retirement to excavate the parts of themselves that spent decades buried under professional responsibility. You cannot discover a new identity while gripping the old one with both hands. So how do you actually decide what to release? 3 questions. Question 1. Does this serve the life I am building or the life I am leaving? Am I keeping this out of genuine value or out of habit and the gravity of who I used to be? Question 2. What is this really costing me? Not just the direct cost, the insurance, the storage, the property tax, but the opportunity cost of that trapped money, the mental bandwidth it eats, and the space it occupies in a life that has better uses for it. Question 3. If I let this go, what becomes possible? That single question rotates your whole perspective from scarcity to abundance. What experience opens up? What stress evaporates? What does it feel like to simply have less to manage? And here's the practical tool that makes all 3 safe to use, the 90-day test. Before you sell anything permanent, live for 60 to 90 days as if you already had. Wondering about the RV? Do not touch it for 90 days and notice what you actually miss. Same with the second car, the second home, the collection. Imagine the money already sitting in your retirement account and notice how that feels. Relief or genuine loss. Most people are stunned by how liberating it is to release something they were certain they needed. Because retirement was never about deprivation. It is about optimization. It is about clearing room for what matters by letting go of what has quietly stopped serving you. Every single thing you keep asks for a piece of your money, your attention, and your energy. And in retirement, those 3 become the most precious and finite resources you own. The happiest retirees are not the ones surrounded by the most. They are the ones who finally understood the difference between what they own and what owns them. Understanding money is your best defense. This has been More on Money USA.